Hey, this is Holly and welcome. This is Teaching Tuesday with Wild Blessings, and I'm so happy to be home in my kitchen. I've been gone for the last few weeks, traveling north, foraging my way up the coast and back down the coast, and I'll have lots of good videos coming out about that. Today, I'm going to be introducing you to one of my best friends. This is Elderberry, Sambucus canadensis for the American elderberry, and there's so much to appreciate about this amazing plant. But first I want to start with a poem. I don't even know who wrote this poem, but I found it on the net. It says, "When the days have grown in length, when the sun has greater power, shining in high noonday strength, when the elder tree is in flower, when each shady kind of place by the stream and up the lane shows its mass of creamy lace, summer has really come again." So I love to surf nature's wave with you guys, and I love to teach about what's available free for the knowing and the picking right now. And so this, I'm sure you're seeing all over the place, along the riverbanks, along hedgerows, along highways. I was driving down 81 and there was just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of elderflowers, which are kind of advertisements saying, the berries are coming. But if I could pick between the flowers and the berries, which I wouldn't want to have to do, but if I did, I'd probably want to pick the flowers. So you'll be seeing why in just a minute. It can be a really tall shrub. It's not quite a tree, but it can get up to 25 feet tall. And there's just a lot that we're going to be talking about. So let me just go over some welcomes, because we have a lot of new members, and we actually reached 200 members. So welcome to all of you, and welcome to all you new guys. And you probably are all on this herbal journey at one point, at some level or another, and I'm sure there's a lot of you that know more than I do. So I really appreciate your comments. I appreciate your feedback. I appreciate your input. I'm learning along with you. So welcome. So the first thing we always do at each class is we do some herbing around, and this is called destemming. So this here is some lemon balm that I had picked fresh before I left on my trip, and I bundled it with a rubber band. And then so all you do is, after it's completely dry, you hang them upside down, is you just strip them off like this.
I'm sorry. Could we interrupt for just a second? Since Max and I didn't get to hear at the start of your class, we just wanted to say how much we're so glad that you're home, and well,
yeah,
we're both glad that you're home.
Yeah.
And so we just want to say hi to everybody for today's class.
Yeah, well, let's put him in the other room because he tends to bark when
Well, yeah, I know that, but he's been out there while you've been messing with elderberry, so he knows all about them. He has been.
He does.
He's
really my magic dog, and I honestly think that elder is kind of magic. So yeah, let's just put him in the other room.
All right, he'll be out.
Okay, so what you do with this is, actually I like to save all of the stems, and I have a huge box downstairs, and you can use these as fire starters. And it's really kind of fun because your fire can smell like lemon balm, it can smell like peppermint, it can smell like rosemary, it can smell like all of your smudge sticks, which is what I call these. So I know I'm obsessed with not wasting anything and using it all, but this is just one way to do it. Then you take all of these dried leaves, and you want to keep them for, they'll last for about a year fresh, and then refill your this is lemon balm mason jar. And so my mason jar is in the other room with lemon balm, but I just wanted to show you that if you were with me and we were at the Todd Mercantile right now, you'd all be destemming and your hands would be busy while I was teaching. So I'm going to get back to teaching, but I wanted to tell you that there's always something to do, and herbalist hands are never idle. And I know I'm not knitting, but I'm creating a lot of life and love and nutrition, and playing with nature is my favorite way of fooling around. Okay, and so now we'll have a tea, and I'll show you what I'm going to do for that. So Jason, you want to have a elderberry soda with me?
Well, sure, let's do it.
Okay, so this is elderberry syrup that I made a couple of months ago, and if you freeze the berries when they're ripe and they're abundant, and then you can put them in a paper bag in the freezer, and then put that in a plastic bag. when the berries are frozen solid, you just whack them on the counter and all those berries go flying, and then you can get them off their peduncles or their petioles, which are toxic, and so that way they are easily removed. So now, then I made it into a syrup, which I have the recipe for that. You can find that anywhere online. And then because I'm kind of lazy today and my water kefir isn't quite ready to go, I'm going to go ahead and make it with just a seltzer water. So we'll pour in some the syrup. So you're getting all of the nutrition, which we'll talk about in a little bit when we talk about all of its benefits, in kind of a soda. A lot of people make elderberry wine, so there's lots of things you can make with the elderberries. Here, hon. What do you think?
That's really very, very good.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yep. For my cooking demonstration today, I'm not actually going to cook something because I have a better plan for that. I'm just going to take off these leaves and put them in water and get them boiling on the stove, and we'll talk about why I'm doing that later and why this is such an amazing trick for making a repellent for rodents or for insects. So I'm going to just fill this up. Like if I had time and you weren't sitting there watching me, I would probably get rid of all of these leaves and really fill up this jar and get a very thick concentrate of the leaf. Now the leaf is not edible, but it is medicinal. So we'll talk about that when we get to what does elder do. Okay, so let me put this on the stove. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about elder. When I think about introducing you to a different plant, and these are like my friends, and as I was traveling up north to New York and Washington, D.C. area, and I stopped at my childhood home, every time I saw an elder or I saw a yellowdock or daylily or wild garlic or any of those things, I would just feel like they were my friends. And so even though I might be by myself or in a strange place, I really felt like I was with beings that I understood, and I knew their value and I knew what they had to offer. And that's just a really empowering feeling. And it was interesting to me how nature's wave is different up north than it is on my mountain. It's a lot faster. And the reason why is because I'm at a high altitude, and even though we're up north, I was going north, it was probably a good 2 weeks ahead of me where I am here. So it was astonishing when I came back to see how much had changed, and I've done a video on that, which I'll do for my Patreon members. But one of the things that I learned when I was up in New York City from Steve Brill, he talked about the wild field garlic, which we did a whole class on back in February. And he said that these cute little seeds at the top are really tasty. So you can look at, they're really small and amazing. So like last night I made a really delicious wild burrito, and I just took these tiny seeds and I put them all over as seasoning, and they were so good. But you can eat the whole thing. Very crunchy, so good. And they're all over the place right now because, field garlic was so prolific all winter long. It's going to disappear in a couple of weeks, and then it'll come back in September and then just grow all winter long. So this is an amazing gift to us. Obviously, you can't eat the stems anymore because you see how fibrous they are, but this is what you can eat, and these are the seeds. And you could have eaten the flowers that came before that. Then when I was in my garden, do you remember when I made leeks I grew leeks out of a leek I had purchased at the grocery store? I just took the bottom of the leek and I put it in the soil, and they grew. And so I have 3 leek plants because I had planted 3 scraps of leeks. And so I got these beautiful leeks, and they've gone past the leek stage that I can actually harvest. But that's really still very, very tasty. But look at all the seeds there. So this is kind of a larger version of the wild garlic seeds. You can see all those seeds and flowers that are all very edible as well. So this whole thing is delicious, and it's amazing to me that you can actually grow a garden from vegetable scraps. And I'm all into free. So that was fun. I came home and there was unbelievable weeds everywhere, not the kind that I want to take root. So this was Yellowdock, and if you have this growing in prime real estate in your garden, then cut it down and put it, because you can find it anywhere elsewhere, but you don't want this in your garden or in your driveway if you have gravel, because once it goes to seed, this will be millions and millions of more problems, and because they have tap roots, they're very hard to get up. So I do love you, Yellowdock, but I don't want you in prime real estate. So just a little tip. Oh, who am I? You know, who is this little friend? Its name is Sambucus nigra. Well, it's a species, and there's many of them. So there's the nigra, which is from Europe, and that's the black elderberry. And there's the Sambucus canadensis, which is the American elderberry, which is what we have here. And there's the Sambucus racemosa, which is the red elderberry, and those tend to be toxic. So I don't want to talk about that one, although some people do know how to fix it. Sometimes the plant is poisonous only if it's not prepared properly. Since I don't have red elderberries, I've decided I'm not going to teach on it. So if you do have it, do your research before you try to fix it or consume it, because it can be toxic. It's in the honeysuckle family, which is really surprising to me, and I didn't take the time to research why that is. Caprifoliaceae family. Sambucus is the Greek word for sambuke, which is for a musical instrument. And the reason why it was called that is because these stems are very, very weak, and they have a pith inside. You can take like a skewer and get that pith out and turn this into a pipe. These pipes were used as a flute. They were used as blowguns. I've read quite a bit about how that was been done all through history, and children would play with them, and the whole name of this plant is from this process, and it was because of Pan, which is some fairy or whatever that was Pied Piping using an elder pipe. A lot of people say that this part is toxic, and it is, and so I would not consume this or eat this, but I don't think it would be a problem to blow on it as a blowgun or blow on it as a flute. But if that's a concern to you, then just don't do it. There is a poisonous lookalike called water hemlock, and water hemlock does not have these warty little lenticels on the stem, and it has a hollow stem. It's not woody like this, it's herbaceous, but they do tend to grow near each other. Their umbels are similar, but not. So once you've really looked at it and you've compared it and you've studied it, you would never, ever confuse them. But if you're a newbie, and especially in the early stage when the plant is growing, they might look similar. So be careful with that, and we'll talk about the differences in the leaf structure in a minute. Nicknames is pipe tree, for what I just told you about. The best known is the American elder, which is the Sambucus canadensis, which is not near as tasty as the blue elder, which is Cereola, which is in the West Coast. So those tend to be so juicy and so tasty that you can actually eat them raw. If you've ever eaten an elderberry, you might go, that is disgusting. It's because it needs to be dried to be flavorful, and it's because it has no acid in it. So the acid creates you can create the acid by collecting wild grape at the same time. I'm talking about the berries, or crabapple, or something that has a little bit of acid in it, or lemon. A lot of recipes call for lemon. You can find elderberry jam recipes on the pectin box, but it'll always require lemon, and that acid will help with the flavoring. Or you can dry them, or you can just get the blue elderberries, which is Sambucus cereola. All right, so let's talk about what it looks like. It's a shrub. It grows from 5 to 25 feet tall. It has very weak branches, so like you can just see how easy they are to snap like that. It has very unusual bark, kind of it has warts all over it. So it has opposite branching. Whoops, I just ripped off one. Here, we'll show this one. See the opposite branching? And then when you look at the leaves, you can see that they're compound leaves and they're pinnate and they're odd at the end. So they have the odd one at the very end. The edge of the margin is kind of serrated and not really deeply toothed, but has a gentle serration. So the opposite branching. And the flowers are absolutely gorgeous. So if you have, I hope all of you have a jeweler's loop, because to look at these with a jeweler's loop is to just experience joy because they're so stinking beautiful. And they come in let's see if I can find a better example. They come in kind of this little cluster here, which is called a cyme, C-Y-M-E. And the water hemlock has white flowers too, but they're not this pretty. And they come out like little satellites, and it's distinctly different. These tend to have kind of a flat head to it, and those are like a complete umbrella of satellite white flowers. So that's another distinctive. They're so pretty, and they have pollen all over them. At this stage, they smell amazing. There's just no other smell like an elderflower smell. When they start to be pollinated and they start to turn brown, they'll smell like cat pee. So you want to get them if you're going to be making recipes early when they're fresh and they have this delicious elderflower flavor, which only has it's really just its own flavor to itself. So many recipes you can make with that. By the way, if you comment, it will be such a blessing to me because I love to communicate with you and connect with you. And so if you have questions, post them. If you have wisdom that I'm not sharing, post that. Anything that you've done that you would like to share, please share that. The elderberry fruit is a tiny drupe and they hang down really low. I remember when I first moved here, I'm the only place on the mountain that has these elderflowers, and we have hundreds of them, don't you think? I mean, it's crazy how many we have. And they used to just line the street right in front of my house, and every year we'd have a 4th of July party, and the elderflowers would be out, and I didn't know what they were. And I had no idea what they were until I studied herbalism, and when I found out that I had this incredible plant, it blew my mind, and I realized that was a complete gift to God. And now it completely surrounds my house, which is so fun. Hippocrates, he gave the elderberry the name the people's medicine chest because he believed that if you're going to have one thing to grow in your garden for your health, it should definitely be the elderberry, because you heal any part of your body with different parts of the elderberry. He wrote a book that was 170 pages long on just the elderflower. It's been a pharmacy in and of itself for generations. So there's just so much to benefit from this and to value in this plant. So if you don't have it, get it. And you can get it from me. I've shared it with many, many people. I've shared it on other areas on my land, which I'll explain how I did that later. And it's so easy to propagate and so easy to spread the love. So you want to have this plant. We talked about its stature being a tall tree. Its roots, I forgot to tell you about that, are rhizomes. And these rhizomes send up, they're called clones, and they make this amazing mass of more trees every year. And that's why it just keeps spreading. And it moves. It doesn't stay in one place. A tree will live for 2 to 3 years and then just kind of move along with its rhizomes and its clones into a new area. So that's crazy, but it's really kind of fun to watch it kind of creeping along. And it spreads in all directions. So that is kind of strange. So what do you do? All right, so I'm going to go over to my computer and I'm going to share with you some of the things that elderberry does for us. Okay, I'll be right there. Befriending Elderberry. I'm home, and it was just so good to see Max, and he's just not left my side since I've been back. And it's been good to see you, Jace.
Well, thanks. Thanks, Hall. Appreciate it.
I taught about this years ago at the Mercantile, and Lynn did such a good job of always doing a picture of the plant and its botanical name. O Lord, how many and varied are your works. In wisdom, you've made them all. The whole earth is full of your riches. And this is truly one of the richest blessings. So here's the stature I was talking about. Look at how tall they grow. This one's down by my vegetable garden, and the ones on the right-hand side are the elderberries growing along my front yard next to the road. This is back in the same picture along the road on the left-hand side back in the winter time after snow, and you can still see the elderberry, the elder branches, and they're very wise to be pruned back. So prune them back, prune them, prune them, prune them, prune them back, because they get weak and you want them to grow on fresh, woody substance. So I was always afraid to, and I've become very confident in that, and you'll see why at the end of this presentation. You can see this over here in, I guess this is March, where you can see the little shoots coming out. There's those pinnate compound leaves I was telling you about. The elderflower buds, this is before the flowers actually open. I've never read about those being edible. I don't think I would bother because you need to be careful. Just because the flowers are edible doesn't necessarily mean that the new buds are completely edible. If anyone knows, please comment. I have no idea. So here's those beautiful elderflowers. They are such a favorite for bees and for pollinators, and they create, they're called elder blow, the little flowers. When you just take the flowers, you can shake the branches and they'll fall off onto a basket or onto a sheet. So there's the flowers, and they turn into the berries. In between that stage are the green berries, and the green berries I've always made into capers. And I can't remember who told me to do that, but I love them, and Jason and I use them all the time for, oh, I don't know, chicken piccata and stuff like that. Anytime you'd need a caper, and I brined them. So they're delicious, but everything I've read say that they're toxic. So it hasn't killed me yet. So I'm not going to recommend doing that, but I certainly have enjoyed it. So here's the elder preparations for what do they do. So the flowers, you can put them fresh in salads. This picture I didn't realize on the right is actually a Queen Anne's lace, so that's not elderflowers. But what I would do is I would just take a fork and I would pull those off or shake them off and put them just like confetti into your salad. Elderflower syrup, just make a simple syrup, and then I used that to make baklava with honey. And here's my friend Chloe. We made elderflower fritters together, which is such a fun thing to do. And I used the elderberry syrup left over from last year, or I mean the berries, and I make a fresh syrup. So we have a great syrup to pour over them. And you just make a good batter and dip them in hot coconut oil, and we'll have burdock bacon, and we'll have a nice wild brunch. So those are the fritters. So if you haven't made these, for heaven's sakes, make them. They're delicious. And the elderflower tea on the left and elderflower wine on the right, that's not my picture. I got that off of the web. So I don't know who did that to give credit to, but I intend to make wine this week, so I'll have my own pictures after that. I have made the cordial, which is absolutely delicious. I'm making it on the left, and there it is on the right. Here's the champagne. Okay, so I poured out some so that there's a lot of neck room, because this is going to create some serious pressure. And then I put the swing top on, and I'm going to put this in a cool, dark place with a towel over it, so if it does explode, it'll be captured in one location. But I'm hoping that it'll be really tasty. In about 2 weeks, it should be ready. But the longer you leave it, the better it's supposed to get. So we shall see. This is my experiment with elderflower champagne. Okay, over on the right-hand side, I made elderflower cordial gummies, and on the left is elderberries. I've made elderberry fruit leather. Okay, so here's the berries. Let's make a simple syrup for making elderberry syrup. You can also really kick it up a notch by using some nutmeg and cinnamon and ginger, astragalus, anything you want to add to the properties of elderberry. Elderberry sparkle with whey or kefir grains. It's delicious. If you just make a lot of the syrup or you just freeze a lot of the berries, then you can certainly use them for preparations all winter long. Elderberry jams, and with this I would recommend using a crabapple for the pectin lemon or something that adds the acid, because there's no acid in elderberry and you need that in order to make a tasty jam. What I did is I used sumac, because the sumac berries have the acidic malic acid in them, which is just exactly what you need. So to me, that's the perfect way of combining those. The sumac elderberry jelly. And this is on my bucket list. I've never made this, but this is an elderberry pie. This would truly be better if I had a Sambucus nigra rather than a canadensis, but I don't. Just dry the berries before making the pie and it will be just as tasty, or so I have read. If you've tried that, please let me know. Let's talk about the nutritional properties. So it is high in vitamins E, B, and C, and potassium and iron. So that's one of the reasons why it is effective medicinally, because it has all these amazing, it has phosphorus as well and some copper. It has protein and fiber. So those are the things that are nutritional, but they're also medicinal. What do you do medicinally? So let's talk about its medicinal properties. It aids in digestion, in constipation, in gas because of the fiber. It helps your gut be more efficient to get more out of the food. It eliminates bad cholesterol and increases the good with cardiovascular issues. It releases tension or relaxes tension, significantly reduces blood pressure and keeps your heart healthy. It's also unbelievable for respiratory issues. Strengthens the immune system, and that's probably what it's the most famous for. Elderberry is a fabulous, this is Jim, okay, is a fabulous immunomodulator. That means it doesn't just stimulate the immune system into overdrive. It actually assists the body in adjusting to whatever level of immunity is needed. I love that about herbs. Has been shown to be antiviral in some cases, effectively disarming the virus and then flushing it out of the system before it can continue replicating itself in your body. And then he says, I prefer to use it to prevent the actual onset of a virus, but it's actually quite wonderful for lessening its severity and decreasing the length of an illness once you've actually contracted it. And Paul Bergner points out that elderberry preparations not only stimulate immune activity, but also directly inhibit the influenza virus by disarming the virus of its ability to invade healthy cells and multiply there. This is especially noteworthy because although the influenza virus mutates every year, its means of penetrating cells and using them to make copies of itself remains largely the same. So while flu shots need to be created each and every year, elderberry will act effectively throughout these mutations. I'd heard one time someone said that elderberry just makes your cells slippery so the germs can't hold on, and I thought that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so lots to say about the medicinal issues. And then it's cosmetic, so what is it useful for? So cosmetically, it's great for skin treatments and for beauty treatments. And so it'll actually remove skin spots and freckles. And so it used to be a big deal back in the day, like 100, 200 years ago, whatever, to have really white skin, and people hated freckles, and so they would sell this skin treatment made with elderflower. It's not to remove freckles, you should love your freckles, but it's really good for skin health. Sharing the elder love. I got this Facebook post from my friend Tori Cox, and she said, Holly, look what you did. This used to be grass, and now it is motherwort, mugwort, wild bergamot, elderberry, valerian, and Jerusalem artichokes. This is one of the best gifts I've ever received, and it gets better each year. Thank you so, so much. So what I did is I went over to her house with a whole bunch of my plants, and I did it in the third quarter of the moon, so it would be the best taken, and I planted an elderberry bush, and I planted all these other things, and they just throve. They just absolutely did great, and she was so happy about it. The one on the left is exciting to me because this year I actually decided that I would take the branch back in March, and I just would cut off pieces of the branch, and then I would stick it in the ground as long as it had a nodule where the axis where the leaves would be coming out, that would become a root. And I did a whole bunch of them all over the mountain, and I gave a bunch away. It was so simple. I didn't have to root them in water. I didn't have to use any willow concentrate or anything, I just stuck them in the ground and they're doing wonderful. This is where I was telling you about the elder spreading. This tree over here, the elder on the right hand side, is in front of my spruce, and I literally cut that back to 1 feet tall 2 months ago. And it was kind of scary to do, but I did it because I wanted to have more sunshine in my garden. I had no idea that it would grow back to 18 feet tall, and it's done that just in 2 months. So that just blew my mind. And then over here to the left, this is just a few feet away from this same cluster of elderberry. And do you see how those rhizomes set up that little elder shoot on the left? So I'm going to go ahead and plant these. These are my canes that I had cut down about 3 weeks ago from that elder right there. And there's lots of growth over there, but look at this. These are starting to root out. And look at how much they're leafing and branching out. It's pretty exciting. So I'm going to put these in my deep backyard and kind of have a fence of elders. Since the creation of the world, his invisible attributes, his eternal power and divine nature have been clearly seen, being understood through what has been made. Romans 1:20. So when you think about elder and you think of how magical it is and how beautiful it is and all of the gifts for food and medicine and usefulness, what does it make you think about? You know, what does it reveal about our Creator and his heart for you? And honestly, I think this is one of the most divine gifts that we've been given. I just wanted to post that question out there. So if you can think of something that makes you appreciate the character of our Creator more just because of this gift of Sambucus nigra canadensis, I would love to hear it.
Okay, would you please, however, answer a question someone wrote in? Barbara asked, how do I get the flowers off without any of the stems?
That's a good question. As you can outside, Jason was helping me with this yesterday. This is called elder blow, getting these little flowers off. You can just go like this to plants that are ready to lose their flowers, and it'll still berry if you do that. Because don't forget, every single one of these cymes that you take off means you won't be getting berries. So one of the things you might want to do in collecting elderflower is collect it at a different location rather than your yard, but I have so many thousands of them that I honestly just harvest them here, and I just don't take them all, of course, because I do want the berries for sure. So you can take a fork and you can stick them in the peduncles and pull them out like that, or you can just gently pull them with your fingers. It doesn't matter if you have tiny pieces of the petiole because it's not that much. So this would probably be the easiest way. But Jason and I were just shaking it. And also the other thing you want to do is put it on a white sheet outside after you've collected them. And that way the sun will reflect on the white sheet, and all of the bugs that love to hide in the clusters will scamper out. And it was kind of fun to watch because it was hot outside yesterday when I was collecting things, and they just went vroom. And so, you know, it's more protein if you want to eat with them. But you're going to strain it anyway if you're cooking, so it's not that big of a deal. But some people freak out over insects. So yeah, that's what I would recommend. That's all I've ever read people do. But what I like to do as well is just to kind of cut off like this. And that will also protect the flowers from being harmed. Because what you're really wanting to get is the pollen. The difference medicinally between the elderflower and the berry, they have a lot of similarities, but the biggest difference is that this is a diaphoretic. And so that means that it will actually heat up if you have a fever, this would be the one to have a tea with, okay? So you want this tea to be hot, and you will probably want to add to it some rose hips or something that has a little bit of acid, and then some local honey, because that has a lot of medicinal properties as well. So then with this tea, say you have a fever, the fever is not a problem. It's the cure for whatever infection is going on in your body. So don't freak out when your kid has a fever or when you have a fever. You just want to encourage it and you want to help it, and this would be the best thing to do, would be drink elderflower tea. One of the things I'm trying to do now is I'm trying to dry these flowers, and I'm going to put them in my dehydrator because I want to have them for winter use so that I can make teas to have a healthy tea for possibilities of fevers, colds, and flu. However, if the water gets cold, if the elderflower tea gets cold, that becomes a diuretic. So it's also good for kidney health. So hot for a fever, cold elderflower tea for a diuretic. And that will help to eliminate the toxins, help your kidneys work well, and clear things out. So that's amazing. But the elderberries is specific for the immune building, for, like I was telling you about the slipperiness of the cells so the germs cannot hang on, they can't replicate themselves. There's so much research being done right now in major universities, in pharmaceutical companies even, because this is absolutely a kick-ass plant and they know it, and so they're trying to, you can't patent it though. So one thing I love about the way God creates things is that it's in its whole, it's in its entirety, and it all works symbiotically together. When you take the constituents out, they can be dangerous, and that's why there's lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of side effects to pharmaceuticals. If you ever listen to the fast talking at the end of commercials where they talk about you could possibly lose your left arm and your right kidney and you might even die, but they say it really fast while they're smiling and riding bicycles, that's because pharmaceuticals do have a lot of serious side effects. And a lot of times herbs just don't, because if you eat them in their holistic entire environment, they balance each other. So
But
I don't know if that was well said.
Would you relate, though, what happened when you were visiting your brother and your niece was not feeling well and you went to a local store, and how elderberry had some play or some involvement in your choice?
Yes, absolutely. So my niece is going to be a nanny in Prague. She just graduated from high school. So I went up to her graduation, and there's no way that she should be getting sick right before leaving for Prague. And before that, she was going to go to the beach with her high school friends. And she just got, Aunt Holly, I'm getting sick. And so she said, do you have anything? And my elderberry is at home. Let's go to the store. So we went to Wegmans, and I got her some elderberry gummies, and she started taking them every 2 hours. So the thing is once you get sick, you need to just take something regularly. You can take this preventatively once a day, but once you do get an acute situation, you want to take it regularly and consistently, and even after your symptoms are gone, so that they'll stay away. So back here in my apothecary, I have elderflower tincture, which helps with colds and flu and cough and fever and arthritis and hay fever, facial toning. These flowers are also really good for eye compresses, so I'm super excited about that because I've been, my eyes have been really strained lately, and so I'm excited about trying this as an eye wash, and not the tincture, but the flowers themselves. They're good for a skin bleach. They're called a scar eraser. So that's the elderflower. But then the elderberry is really, really good for the immune building and for colds and flus and all that. Yes.
Would you also comment, someone made a comment here about keeping elderberry syrup in the fridge.
Mm-hmm.
So is that a requirement once you make it into a syrup, or talk about how you do
Yeah.
that.
So I like to keep my elderberries in the freezer and use them as I need them. So I don't make all my syrup back in September when they're all out there to be gathered. I like to freeze them and then make a batch here and a batch there all throughout the winter. And all you have to do, like I said, is take that paper sack and just smash it on the counter, and all those little berries go flying off, and then you can take those to make a simple syrup. I'll never forget the time my dear friend went out to collect the berries, and she was gone for the longest time, and she came back with an entire bowl full of berries, but she had picked them one by one. And I felt so bad because it would have happened in like a split second if she had just taken the whole thing, froze it with the peduncles and everything, and then froze it hard and then bash it on the counter, and then you could keep the berries for the rest of the winter. Yeah, I probably always have one in my fridge for use preventatively. Like I knew that I was going to be in a compromised situation when I was around lots of people in New York City. So then you take things preventatively so that you can keep your aura strong, your immune system strong. And I never got sick. And I was around a lot of sick people. Here's another thing you can do is you can actually make vinegars out of elderberries. And that's a really cool thing to do. So I love making salad dressings with my elderberry vinegar. And then remember I told you about those awesome sumac berries that tend to be growing at the same time as the elderberries. This gives you the malic acid. So when you're making elderberry jam, making it with this is the best thing ever. And I got that idea from Yule Gibbons in his book, Stalking the Wild Asparagus. And it's just a really good idea. So I love that. I mean, you don't have to use that. You could use lemon or apples or anything that has the malic acid in it. Well, I wanted to tell you a little bit of lore and how it's been used in the past. So, okay, it has a rich folklore behind her. The gypsies believed that burning the limbs of elder brought bad luck to them. And the Celtic people believed that if they stood under a tree on Midsummer's Eve, they would see the king of the fairies. And all around the world, people have planted elder near their home to protect them from evil spirits. In Denmark, elder was connected to magic. Denmark folk believed that a dryad lived in the branches and protected the tree. Permission was always requested before cutting it down. And the Russians believed that the elder drove away evil spirits. Native Americans believed that elder would heal all the illnesses that anyone could ever have. They believed it would promote a long life, giving it the name elder. And here's my elder action list, which I've done some, but not everything. Like I want to make elderberry crunch bread and elderberry jam, which I've done, syrup and sparklers and fritters, milkshakes, I have a recipe for that, ketchup, elderberry ketchup, elderberry wine, elderberry candy bar. Yule Gibbons has a recipe for that. Elderberry pickles, elderberry soup, elderberry crepes. I really want to do that. Elderflower crepes. Irish soda, elderberry bread, and then all kinds of medicinal things I'd like to do. So there's a long list, and I thought it'd be fun if we could all work on that together. Another thing I wanted to recommend is it makes this amazing insect repellent. So those leaves, as you make that into a strong concentrate, into a decoction of those leaves, you can take that and spray that on yourself to protect yourself from insects and ticks and stuff. But cows even know this value, and horses, because they'll go over to the edge of the pasture and they'll stand under the shade of the elder just to keep the flies away, and they'll rub their faces in it. And what some people will actually do is take some of the leaves and put it in the horse's harness to keep, you know how the flies love to go at the horse's eyes. So if I had a horse, I would surely try that. But some people have actually done that themselves to put it in their hats or whatever, just to kind of keep the bugs away. So if I lived in a buggy area, I would surely do that. I will have an elderflower or elderberry crossword puzzle. I hope you all are doing all the crossword puzzles. I hope you all have a notebook. If you do, show me a picture. I would be so psyched about that. That'd be fun. I want you to write an elder poem and use your jeweler's loops. So just go out there and look at it and just revel in it, and then write down, what does it look like? What does it remind me of? What else does it look like? And just write it all down. And if you're a mom and you've got a young child that isn't writing yet, then just be their scribe or write it for them and help them to come up with a poem. And I would love to have those shared. We've kind of gotten out of doing our poems, which is sad, but I've just been on the road and it's been hard to kind of keep that promoted. So you will benefit by capturing what you've learned in a poem, and it will be something that you'll treasure and I will treasure. So share it with all of us. I have an elder action list, which I'm going to post online, which is like 5 miles long of all the things I want to do. Oh, and I have to share this with you. This is super cool. This is called, elder is called a superfood, and people are actually, because of its high antioxidants an anti-inflammatory, just antiviral. All the things we've talked about, people are catching on that, hey, this is a good thing here. And so there's actually farms that are being created with elderberry farms, and they're making them into elder juice. So this guy is super smart. He's making this into a business. I should go into business. So here's some examples of what their customers have said for the elder juice. I have lowered my blood sugar considerably since I started taking your elderberry concentrate. My diabetes tests are in the normal range for the first time in 10 years since I've been taking your concentrate. I am recommending this product to all of my patients. This is some doctor in Kansas. Everyone should take advantage of this wonderful natural way to feel great. I want to tell you that, this is someone else, I want to tell you that I have told everyone I know that elderberry is the very best for a cold. At the rate I was going, I was headed for the hospital, and I'm doing just great. And on with all of these customer comments of what Elder had done for them and learn together. I'm so glad that I get to share these things with you, and that you're all here, and that you get to learn with me. And I'm so appreciative. So the way you can support me is participate, comment, share things that you're learning, teach me. And if you can support in any way through Patreon, I would love that. Thank you for encouraging me. Thank you for supporting me. And thank you for being here. I love this. I love being wildly blessed. And I love sharing God's blessings with each of you.